On behalf of the CRC, welcome. Enjoy your lunch. Enjoy this discussion. And we'll have some time for questions later. I'd like to introduce our co-moderators, and then Professor Buchanan will go ahead and introduce our panelists. So our moderators today are Professor Josh Blackman, who is a graduate of George Mason University School of Law. After graduation, Professor Blackman clerked for Judge Kim R. Gibson of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania and Judge Danny J. Boggs, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. He joined South Texas in 2012. In 2023, Professor Blackman was appointed South Texas College of Law Houston's Centennial Chair of Constitutional Law. More recently, in May 2025, Professor Blackman was appointed by President Trump as one of the 6 members of the Religious Liberty Commission's Advisory Board of Legal Experts. Professor Catherine Buchanan is a graduate of University of Texas School of Law. After graduation, Professor Buchanan was a trial associate at Baker Botts. She then served as a legal writing professor at Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern University and the University of Houston Writing Center. Professor Buchanan joined South Texas in 2019. And she has interned for Judge Robert Schaefer of the 152nd Civil Judicial District Court in Harris County, Judge George C. Hanks of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Texas, and Judge Jennifer Elrod, Chief Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. So please welcome our moderators and our panelists, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Professor Blackman.
Very good. All right. Good morning, everyone. You haven't had me yet. You might have me next year, next semester. We'll see. A very important topic. You're all here as first-year law students. You're thinking, how do I get a job? Some of you might want to work for a firm. Maybe you want to work as a public defender or a prosecutor. Maybe you want to work something not in law. But there's a very important type of job that you should all consider right out of law school, and it's called a clerkship. Okay, now let me just get some terminology straight. Internship, number 1. Externship, number 2. Clerkship, number 3. Okay, so what's a judicial internship? A judicial internship is where you work with a judge during the summer. It's a 5-day-a-week job. You're in chambers every day. You're working with the clerks. You're with the judge during the summer. Okay, internship, summer. What's a judicial externship? Externship is generally during the semester, during the fall, the spring semester. Maybe you go there 1 day a week, maybe you go there 2 days a week, maybe you go there, for an hour here, an hour there. It varies. Okay. Internships and externships are right now, and I think the CRC will have a sign up very soon for summer internships for your first summer. I encourage you strongly to consider those. But what we're talking about mostly today is clerking. Okay. Now, what's a clerkship? Now you think, oh, a clerkship, like, well, you're pushing papers like a clerk. No, that's not what a clerkship is. A clerkship is where you work directly with a judge on all facets of what he or she does. We have judges at different levels. We have appellate judges. We have trial judges. A clerk learns how the law works from the inside. You sit next to the judge. You help the judge write opinions. In case you write the opinions yourself. You sit in on the oral arguments and you hear what the judge thinks about a case. You get to sit there for jury selection. You get to talk to the jurors after the case is over. You see every aspect of the law does. Now you might say, well, Josh, I don't want to be a clerk. I want to be a lawyer. There's time for that. For the most part, judges hire clerks either right out of law school or maybe with a little bit of practice experience. It does vary by the judge. To be honest, the pay is not great. Compared to what firms pay, and my friends will attest to that. But this is a job that sets you up for future success. Law firms heavily recruit people who have these clerkship experiences. And my friend Eric's going to be starting a firm very soon. Haley was at a firm too right now. Tate, I'm sure will be working at a good firm in a couple of years. So this is a very important job. It's very, as we say, prestigious. It's also very, very selective. And here I want to just draw some analogies to firms. Now, you will learn this if you haven't learned this already. Law firms recruit at South Texas at different levels and different times, okay? Some of the really big firms, and their rankings, AmLaw, American Lawyers, right? The AmLaw 100, the AmLaw 50, the AmLaw 10, right? The highest firm, which is usually measured by payments and revenue for the partners, recruit very selectively. They might only say, we want people in the top 5% of the class, people in the top 10% of the class, people in the top 15% of the class. There are different thresholds for different firms. Firms also hire at different times. Some firms hire after your first semester grades come in. Wait, we'll talk about that, right? Like 2 months, right? In January, some of you will have the grades to apply for big law firms. It's true. Some people hire after 2 semester grades come in. Some firms hire second-year law students. Some people wait till you pass the bar, right? Different firms have different thresholds of what kind of student they're looking for and what times they're looking for. That's not a reflection of how good the firm is or great experiences across the board, just some are more selective than others. Judges behave in a somewhat similar fashion. Judges generally have a sense of what grades they're looking for. And I'll just be candid. For federal clerkships, top 5 to top 10%. Just lay that out there. When some judges start hiring after 2 semesters of grades come in. Some judges start hiring after 3 semesters of grades come in. Occasionally, some judges after 4 semesters of grade come in. So between basically by your second year of law school, you're either applying or about to apply for federal clerkships. Not always. Some judges might hire third years, and it varies. And we can talk about specifics. But if this is something you're seriously considering, the process starts, unfortunately, now. The grades from your first semester will say a lot about where you wind up. It's not definitive, but it does help a lot. For example, if you get good grades your first semester, that might help you get a good summer internship with a judge. And it might help you with a good reference for a clerkship application. Sort of all builds together. By the end of this year, that's by June of, I guess, 26, my math is right, you'll have class ranks. And you'll know more or less where you stand. If you do find yourself in the top 5 to 10% after the first semester, after the first year, come talk to me, come talk to Catherine. We will help work with you. It's a very involved process, not just like submitting resumes to a Dropbox. It's about finding the right match, the right student, working with the judge, pitching you to the judge, getting you the right sort of packaging it and relationships. We here at South Texas have built a very strong clerkship program. In the last several years, we have 7 of our kids going to the Fifth Circuit, and by the same number going to the Supreme Court of Texas. That is leaps and bounds we had a decade ago. Go to UH, we're being them by leaps and bounds. They're not even close. But you have to sort of trust the process, as they say. So I'm going to shut up and stop talking now. And I have so much more to hear from my dear colleagues and my former students in the panel. I love being with former students because they were sitting where you were a couple of years ago, right? The same place you're sitting, these 3 were sitting where you are. So you too can be up here one day. I will help you get up here one day. And this is what we're going to do today. Thank you all so much. Catherine, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, thank you, Josh. That's a very important background. And we did want to get that vocabulary out of the way so that you all understand where we're coming from. And just how delighted are we to have these wonderful top graduates, our dear alums with us today. So let's just recognize them taking time from their incredibly busy schedule. Let's just recognize that. So rather than me read their accolades to you, which are many, they're all at the very top of their class from our law school. I'd like them to themselves, this is Haley Bernal, Tate Doughty, and Eric Williams. I'd like them each to just mention to you what they're doing now, the internships or clerkships that they had with judges. They're up here, but it's kind of hard to read for everybody. And then when they were in the building here, what was the experience that had the greatest impact on you? Just looking back in perspective, because these students have the full array of things ahead of them, but sometimes it's hard to tell what to do. So let's just hear from you, if you wouldn't mind, Tate.
Okay, I'll start. Hey, everyone. My name is Tate Doughty, South Texas College of Law graduate, class of 24, so about almost 2 years ago. Right now, I'm a judicial law clerk for Judge Andrew M. Edison in the Southern District of Texas. He's a federal magistrate judge. And you said the
thing that had the most impact on
impact on us at South Texas. I was really involved in the advocacy program with Moot Court. I also did law review, but my favorite experiences from law school definitely came from the advocacy program.
Awesome, great, thank you. Haley.
So my name is Haley Bernal. I'm currently at Bracewell, which is a law firm down the street.
They're having trouble, like
Sorry.
maybe it's the mic on.
Can you all hear now? So my name is Haley Bernal, and I'm currently at Bracewell, which is a law firm down the street. Before that, I had 2 clerkships. I clerked at the Texas Supreme Court with Justice Evan Young, and then I clerked in the Southern District of Texas, the Galveston Division, with Judge Jeffrey Brown. So both were incredible experiences, very, very different. So if you have the opportunity to do more than one clerkship, I highly recommend it. You learn different things in both. The thing that had the greatest impact on me at South Texas, I think honestly, it's going to sound not that exciting, but going to office hours with your professors is huge, because I think when you're in the classroom setting and, you're just one of many people in a class and the professor seems, so knowledgeable and almost scary when you're walking in and you don't know anything. I think going to office hours really, really helps kind of, foster that relationship and get more, one-on-one advice that you wouldn't receive in the classroom setting otherwise. And it really helps to solidify the themes and what you're learning in the classroom setting.
I agree with that. Office hours are important. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Williams. I'm a graduate of South Texas 2022. I am currently unemployed. Kidding. No. I started with my new job on my new firm on Monday. So I'm in between my clerkship and so I actually am unemployed at the moment. But prior to that, after graduation, I worked for Foley and Lardner, which is a big law firm, for 2 years, went to clerk, and then now going to another firm. What was the other?
Oh, biggest impact when you're here.
Oh, yes. Biggest impact. So I was editor-in-chief of South Texas Law Review. So that took up most of my time as a 3L. But in addition to what Haley said, office hours, just really putting the time into mastering the material. For y'all, as Professor Blackman said, first semester grades are important, or probably the most important set of grades you're going to have. So really taking the time to master the material, going to office hours, asking questions, not relying on outlines that you get from random people, no chat GPT, like doing the work yourself, treating this like a job. This is a professional school. You're about to go into a rigorous profession. So just really taking the time and putting, the time in to get the result that you want.
Let me just add a brief addendum to what my dear colleague said. One of the advantages of going to office hours is your professor knows who you are. And when you ask for a letter of reference for a clerkship, it makes such a difference. Say, student John Smith came to my office hours every week and asked these amazing questions versus Jane Doe had very good answers in class, right? We have 90 people in our sections for first year classes. I love you. We don't know who you all are. We can't. We might know your face, maybe look at the seating chart, but I just wrote a clerkship letter yesterday or the other day, and it said, he came to office hours after comm law and asked the most insightful questions. And I remember what those questions were, and I put them right in the letter. We at South Texas will help you if you help yourself. So the all said office hours, we need it. Come, get known.
I neglected to tell you who I clerked for. I think that's the reason y'all are here. So during law school, I had externships with Judge Eskridge in the Southern District, as well as Chief Judge Elrod of the Fifth Circuit. Judge Elrod subsequently hired me as her law clerk, and I just finished my term with her in September of this year, so last month. So have just completed my clerkship.
Okay, fantastic. We really appreciate those answers. And as I was saying to Haley and Tate earlier, these 1Ls are in the middle of midterms, exams. So anything you want to share about struggles or, diversions along the way, because sometimes people just see the accolades and they think it was a straight path, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. So anything you want to share about that. But Josh alluded to this, but sometimes it's hard to visualize what a clerk does day to day. And I know every clerkship is different. So could you just share with us, Tate, what exactly is it that you do and what's the variety of tasks?
Yeah, so my days are different every day. Well, we start off every day looking at the docket activity report. So we want to see what people have filed in the past 24 hours and see, if there's any emergency motions that we need to take care of first and foremost at the beginning of the day. But the substance of my day-to-day depends really on the judge's schedule. And some days judge will have hearings, some days he has mediations. some days nothing's on the schedule. So if we have hearings, I'll be preparing for those and attending those, getting to sit in on those. Same for mediations, but not all of the mediations. And some of the mediations are very boring, so you wouldn't even want to sit in on some of those mediations. Some days when we don't have anything on the schedule, we'll typically be working on pending motions. So motions for summary judgment that parties are waiting to be decided, motions to dismiss, motions to seal, literally the gamut of all of the motions that are filed in court, we take care of and we work. So I'll take a step back. Judge Edison is a magistrate judge who works closely in tandem with the United States District Judge, who's Haley's old judge, Judge Jeff Brown. So we work hand in hand with Judge Brown and his clerks because everything that's in the Galveston Federal Court, we're handling a lot of the pretrial stuff, and even some cases are fully assigned to Judge Edison to go from start to finish to final judgment. So it really depends. So the days are different every day. And that's one thing that I like about the clerkship is every day you're kind of doing something different. You're not going to be bored doing the same thing or get tired of doing the same thing. So a lot of things are going on every day, and it's fast paced in the district court too. So.
Thanks, Haley. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, so my day looked a lot like Tate's because we worked in the same courthouse for the my Southern District clerkship. So I'll talk a little bit about my Texas Supreme Court clerkship and what that looked like day to day. That involved a lot of writing. If you want to clerk, I want you to know that you will be writing a lot. I love writing and researching, so that's great for me. But that is a huge part of the job. So my day-to-day at the Texas Supreme Court just involved taking whatever case that was mine that I was working on that day or week and, writing study memos, which is like a 20-page document laying down each party's arguments, laying out questions that the justice will ask in oral argument, laying out my thoughts on the case, how I think it should come out, things that will help facilitate a discussion with the judge or justice that you're working with on, the themes of the case and how it should be resolved. So we did a lot of internal memorandums. We did a lot of memorandums to the court itself, getting other justices' feedback to see where they land on cases. And then apart from the writing, it's a really great experience because you get to sit in and listen on the oral arguments that are happening. I mean, you can be in the room where they're taking place. And I think that's very, very exciting and something that I wouldn't have had the chance to do otherwise, unless you want to take a trip down to Austin and sit in the room for fun. But being in the building is a different experience. And another very unique thing about the Texas Supreme Court is the clerks have the chance to sit in on conference.
Any state in the country that hasn't.
Yeah. And so what conference is essentially all the justices sit around a big table in one room. All the clerks are kind of lined up on the walls, like those seats right there. We just kind of sit and surround them, take copious amounts of notes, and we listen to the justices talk about their opinions and their feelings on the cases that are being decided that term. And we start at the beginning and we go case by case. And so they all make their arguments, they present to their colleagues their thoughts, and we go around the room and everyone takes a turn. And, when everyone is done talking about the case, we go on to the next one. It lasts anywhere from like 8 to 12 hours. With a short break for lunch, a couple breaks to get water. If you have to step out and go to the bathroom, you can. That's totally allowed. But it's a long process, but it is so cool to be a part of that.
Yeah. That's actually really cool. So in the federal appellate system, we don't get to sit in on a conference when the judges are making the decision, and it's not for the whole term. On the courts of appeals for the United States sit in 3-judge panels, and they only hear a set number of cases for the sitting. But my day was very much similar to Haley's in the Texas Supreme Court on the Fifth Circuit. It's a lot of writing, a lot of research. I, like Haley, love to write. I love the research. I like kind of finding the puzzle pieces and kind of putting it together. What Haley wrote as study memos, we call bench memos. And so when a clerk writes a bench memo, it's the exact same thing. You're taking a case, you're distilling the parties' arguments, you're distilling the law that applies to the case, and then you as the clerk are making the recommendation to the panel. Judge XYZ or judges X, Y, and Z, I respectfully recommend that you should affirm summary judgment. And then the bench memo is the reasons why. So it's a very fulsome project, and we do bench memos for every case that you're assigned generally. For a sitting, or you're assigned a specific case to write your bench memo on. Like Haley, so the Fifth Circuit is the actual courthouse is housed in New Orleans. So I got to go to New Orleans several times over the past year to sit in on oral argument. And it's a really, really great training ground to see really good lawyering and really bad lawyering. You'd be surprised, even at the federal level and the Texas State Supreme Court level, how bad some of these lawyers are, unfortunately, and unfortunate for their clients. But so it gave me reassurance as a law clerk, like, man, I don't know what I'm doing, that y'all are light years ahead of some of these attorneys, even as law students now. So that should give you some confidence. And in addition to the legal substantive work, Judge Elrod is super active in the community. She teaches here at South Texas. She gives speeches. She does campus visits, just you name it. She does it. And so as a law clerk, as law clerks, it is our job to help her prepare for that. So whether it's preparing for a case, preparing for a speech, helping her write a speech on a certain topic, preparing for a trip, we are I like to say, as federal law clerks, you're similar to like a body man to a senator, like to a congressman. Their schedule, where they are at all times, where they need to be in the next 5, 10, 15 minutes, the next 5 hours. So you're very in tune and in line with your judge. And it creates a very cohesive unit in chambers, but also a very intimate relationship with your judge by the time you're done with your clerkship.
Let me add just one brief point. There are ways of learning what a clerk does in advance of being a clerk. So first off, this year, Eric is teaching a class actually this evening with Kenesha Starling, also my student clerk for Judge Elrod and for Judge Eskridge. We have wonderful clerks. It's called Legal Writing for Law Clerks. It tells you how to actually be a law clerk, how to write memos, how to write opinions, how to write sentencing colloquies. So if next year you have time in your schedule, and they're offering it again, which I hope they do, I would encourage you to take it. Also, internships and externships, it's like a mini preview of being a law clerk. You don't get the full experience, but at least for a short period, you can simulate it, and helps you be much more better prepared to actually hit the ground running.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that all the panelists made and that Josh pointed out about internships. So while federal clerkships might be available to a certain band of grades normally, often when there's a will, there's a way if you're in the building. But we think of internships as that gateway experience. Like you may not have time, or if a federal clerkship doesn't work out for you, or even if you just want to see what it might be like, an internship is a wonderful way to do that, to the point where I interned as a third year with the Texas Supreme Court. So I went back and took an entire semester to intern with the judges in 2023, and it was just a fantastic experience. So, and that's a much more attainable. If you want to do an internship with a judge and you're determined, chances are you certainly can. And you can also do it during the semester for credit, because a lot of people will say, just very quietly, like, I need to actually earn money. Like I was in that position too. I mean, you can't live on air, right? So you can do that during the semester for credit. Okay. So just know that that's available to you.
Can I add on one little
yes.
thing to my day-to-day? So
Yes.
what I neglected to mention the first time is how much time you're spending with the judge or justice himself or herself. A lot of my day-to-day was spent in chambers, with the judges talking about the cases. And I think that's a very unique opportunity, and it's very, very cool. Can be very overwhelming, because they are so knowledgeable, and they have really hard questions that you have to be on call for. You have to be the one to answer. And it's a remarkable experience to be able to chat with someone who will be writing those opinions, and you get to help write the opinions as well. But to be able to talk with someone, at that level about something that is very important is very cool.
Yeah. many judges give their law clerks the first kind of crack at drafting the opinions, and sometimes, with hopefully minimal edits, but sometimes a lot of edits. But ultimately, the judge is the one who drafts the opinions, but the law clerks are intimately involved in that process.
So we've talked about making less money. We've talked about long hours. We've talked about a long ramp onto this and how hard it is to get. So I think these guys are probably trying to piece all of this together.
Yeah.
So if you think back to when you were in these students' position, what made you decide to pursue this route? And has whatever they told you to do it, has it played out to be true?
I'll start. So when I was in law school, I was kind of on the fence about clerking. One, I didn't understand, like I didn't come to this panel. And I wish I would have. Okay.
Yeah, we have these guys now.
That's why, because when people around second year and third year are saying, "Are you going to clerk?" and I'm like, I don't really know what that is. I want to go make money at a law firm,
Yeah.
kind of. So that's what my path was on. But I was a summer associate at a firm called Jackson Walker, and one of my colleagues there had clerked for Judge Edison after graduating law school, and I talked to him about it, and he told me that it was the best job that he ever had, and he spoke very highly of Judge Edison and his clerkship experience. That kind of opened my eyes towards it, and I began to think that clerking was something that I would do. So I was really on the fence. I put in a few applications, not really thinking that I would hear anything back, but I got an email from Judge Edison and interviewed, and then was offered the job. So I knew the reason, to boil that down, the reason why I decided to clerk was because I had gotten good reviews from clerking. And I also learned in my time in law school that a lot of firms really place a high value on clerking, as Professor Blackman mentioned. And even some firms require a clerkship for you to even get an interview.
Bonuses, you're the important part.
You get paid a bonus when you get back. So it evens out kind of on the back end. Not really.
Yeah.
But
Still lose a little bit.
A lot of Chick-fil-A.
lose a little bit. But the value of the clerkship is going to last you for the next 60 years that you're
You
practicing.
gain it in experience.
Yeah.
Like Kate is trying
Yeah.
to tell us.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah. You're in the courtroom every day. So like you kind of fast track all the mistakes that you would make at a law firm, as a junior lawyer, not getting as much responsibility. You get to develop your skills a lot earlier. So those were the two reasons why I decided to put in an application to clerk.
So I just kind of put in applications because it sounds like a great thing to do. And to be completely honest with you guys, I wanted a job after law school, and I knew that law firms were more willing to hire if you had a clerkship. And so I thought that's a good opportunity. I might as well try. I got my clerkship that I had my second year with Judge Brown first. And so then I had kind of a weird gap in time for 1 year. And Judge Brown actually called me and he said, "Listen, I want to offer you this position. It's in 2 years. Are you open to that?" And I said, "Of course," because when you're given a clerkship, you take it.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, always yes. So I took that, and he said, "But I think maybe you should apply to the Texas Supreme Court. Just try." And I thought, okay, like that's never going to happen. And so I kind of applied on a whim there as well, and had an interview with one of the justices, Justice Guzman, actually. And
Graduate.
so alum of this school, which was a huge factor in getting that job. Honestly, we talked about South Texas, and she was very excited that I went here because she went here as well. So I got hired by her, and then she left the court. And so I was then hired by her successor, Justice Evan Young. So kind of worked out in a very random but very exciting way, and I wouldn't change it.
So my path was a little different. So I'm a second career attorney. I worked for a long time before coming to law school. And I came to law school kind of like Tate, like I want to get in, get out, get a job, make some money and move on. So I didn't really have aspirations to clerk coming in, even all the way through 3L. I had gotten the grades and like positioned myself with law review and doing all of the things that would, make a good profile. But I was content with externing or interning. So like I said earlier, I was with Judge Eskridge the fall of my 3L, and then I was with Judge Elrod the spring of my 3L. Got credit for it. I had summered big law, so I was like ready to go start at Foley, right after graduation. And so I didn't apply. I didn't, I didn't go the traditional route. But what I will say is my time externing or interning for Judge Elrod, I treated it like I was a clerk. I was there, even past the time that I was getting credit for. I was doing the things that I need to do. And she ultimately, my last day, we went to lunch, and she sua sponte offered me a clerkship on the spot at lunch.
Didn't accept it.
Yes. So the funny story. So as Haley said, well, Tate's looking at me crazy. As Haley said, this is a nugget for y'all. If a federal judge offers you a job, you accept and you figure the rest out. I didn't know that. So I truly did not know that. So when we were at lunch, Judge Elrod says, "Hey, you've done a fantastic job. You have an open offer to clerk for me anytime you want. I know you're going to Foley. I don't want to mess up your immediate plans, but think about it and let me know." So I did what she told me to do. I thought about it. But literally the next day, so it was like less than 12 hours later, the next day I go to my law review office or whatever, and I get a text from the former dean, so Dean Barry, he's now Professor Barry, text me, and we were did a lot for the school, so getting a text message from the dean wasn't like outlandish. It's like, "Hey, do you have 15 minutes to stop by my office?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure. Okay, no problem." This happened all the time. So I walk in, but when I walked in this time, it was a little different. I felt like I was in trouble. So I walk in, he says, "All right, shut the door, sit down." I'm like, "All right, did I do something wrong?" And never. And so I sit down, he goes, "I heard Judge Elrod offered you a clerkship and you didn't accept." And I was like, "Well, one, how did you know that?" Because that was like less than 12 hours later. Yeah. Professor Blackman apparently knew before anybody. I think Judge Elrod called Professor Blackman. Yeah. Yeah. And it was like an intervention. And then two, she told me to think about it. So I wanted to think about it. I'm taking her instruction. So we have a whole conversation about pros and cons, but by that point I knew I wanted to clerk. It was an opportunity. So leaving that meeting, I immediately called Judge Elrod to accept, and she did not answer the phone. And she did not call me back for 5 days. So I was like, I am cooked. I'm done. She rescinded it. I'm smoked. That's it. But she was busy, as she's invariably is. And we spoke, I accepted, and the rest was history. But the nugget of that, if you don't take anything else away from this panel, if you get a job offer, accept, and you figure the rest out.
Yeah, just add another addendum, and this will be a personal point. So a lot of you here in South Texas, you don't know what your grade is going to be, right? I mean, sincerely, whatever your LSAT is, GPA, that's out the window. There's no relation between LSAT and GPA in first year grades. None. We've looked into it. There's none at all. So you all have a blank slate, right? You all have the same opportunity to get good grades. But some of you will do really well. And there'll be this temptation. The school on the other side of 45, right? The school, if you go I-10 west to Austin a bit, say, wow, man, maybe the grass is going to be greener, right? Maybe I should transfer. And there are some reasons for transfer. For example, maybe the family moves, or maybe there's a financial exigency. Maybe something happens. But I'll make this point very plainly. If you're interested in the clerkship path, transferring will not be in your interest. And I'll explain to you exactly why. Number one, you need professors who can vouch for you. When you transfer as a 1L, that ain't us anymore, right? You have new professors who can be working with you. I don't help people leave. I'm very clear about that. You go ask UH people to help you, right? They know who you are, right? The letters of recommendation you get for your 1L professors disappear when you start transferring. Now, we'll write you a letter for sure, but it's going to be a very different package if you're still here. The second issue is that we have a very holistic program. After your first semester, we'll help you with judicial internships over the summer. And we'll start with your clerkship applications the summer of your 2L. If you decide to transfer, that stuff sort of gets cut off. We just don't have the bandwidth to help people who are former students. So as you weigh your decision to stay or leave and clerkships in your cards, think about it. But by the way, we smoke UH. We have more clerkships than they have by a lot. It's not close, right? I know what they have. They complain. Like, oh, how do you have so many, Josh? Whatever, right? You work for it. UT probably has more, but they also have a much larger class. And it's also like top 15 law school in the country. We're basically on par with A&M, I think, maybe a little bit ahead of them. SMU, we're ahead of them also. So, I mean, to the extent that you're considering leaving, if you're the top, let's say 2 to 5% here, you can get any job you want. You want to work in big law, you go to big law. If you want to clerk in the Fifth Circuit, look at my friends over here. You want to clerk in the Supreme Court of Texas, right? There's nothing you can't do by graduating top of your class here. If you transfer to UT or UH, your GPA resets to a 0. You have no GPA. Yet your GPA is 0. You don't transfer with grades. And you're now working up. I'm going to generalize, but I think I'm mostly right. People who transfer usually don't graduate Latin honors. They don't graduate magna cum laude, summa cum laude. They can't. They don't have enough grades to get up there. Usually about middle of the class. So maybe if you're middle of the class of UT, you can get a big law firm or you get a clerkship. But I would submit humbly that if you're at the tip top of your class here, your job opportunities are better than being in the middle of the class at another law school. I mean that sincerely. And so as you come talking, I'll say, so what are your thoughts on transferring? I say, well, you know, I don't know, Josh, I don't know. But it will invariably happen. It happens every year. People say, Josh, damn it, I'm not going to transfer, I promise. And they transfer anyway. That sort of makes me sad. It happens, and not much I can do about it. But I don't think it's always the best decision. There's a lot of reasons not to. Just wait. I look at my 3 friends sitting right next to me. They stayed here. God, Haley had me 3 times for class. I forgot that many times, right?
Voluntarily.
Give me a little bit. But if you stay here and sort of work with us, there's really no limits to what you can do, and the grass is not greener on the other side.
I wanted to go ahead.
Yeah,
David.
so I think we all probably have the same sentiment. Yeah.
I just wanted to second that because I almost fell into the trap after 1L, putting in the transfer application, seeing where else you can go. But when I thought about it, I really felt like going to U of H or going to a different school, there's nothing that I can't do here that I'm going to get there. Going to those schools is not going to drastically change what you're going to be exposed to. If you, like Professor Blackman said, if you have good grades from here, all of the opportunities are open to you guys. So wanted to second that.
And I'll also say the South Texas network is so strong, stronger than any of the other schools that I know about. And I've alluded to this earlier, but one of the main reasons I got my job at the Texas Supreme Court was because the justice went to this school. So if I didn't have that connection, who knows if I would have gotten that, to be honest.
Yeah. Stay.
Oh, sorry.
So I graduated as valedictorian in my law school class. I was number 1 from bell to bell. So I had partners at Foley. Hey, you need to transfer to Harvard. You need to go to Yale. I can get you in Stanford. I can get you here. I can get you there. Like I know I can get you in. But I knew I wanted to practice in Houston. I knew I wanted to practice in Texas. And to Professor Blackman's point, why not be, tip top of your class here at a great school with great professors, a great network, then middle of the pack at UT just to say you went to UT. And from a practical standpoint, your GPA restarts. And a lot of times based on the timing, you miss the deadlines to write on the journals. You miss their their OCI. You may be slotted in like a random semester's OCI. You don't have the network, the resources that you have here. So I know a ton of people have transferred, and a very small percentage of them have attained what they want to attain in their career thus far. So yeah,
I mean that sincerely. And also, our top people can hang with anyone. So what schools were your co-clerks from? Just interesting. So let's go right in the line.
University of Chicago, UT, SMU, Georgetown, and then down the hall. So Judge Elrod is with Judges Smith and Jones. I'm sorry, mine is blanking. Yes, can't forget Judge Jones. But Yale, Harvard, Duke, Stanford, you name it, NYU, you name it, they're there. And I never felt like I could not hang at all. At some points, I thought I had, I was a little better in certain areas because I had such practical experience.
There's actual law beyond the Constitution. I believe that. And who are your co-clerks?
Okay, so funny story. My co-clerks, all of them were UT, Harvard, some form of that. But actually, I felt like I was better prepared for a lot of the material that came up because South Texas, I didn't know this, is unique. And we don't have a ton of, open note exams. All the other law schools are having open note exams. And so I didn't know that and was talking to them one day and I kind of recited off some law and they were like, you memorized it? And I said, yeah, for the exams. And they said, ours are open note. Like they don't have the same foundation that South Texas gives you here. And they, force it upon you because the exams unfortunately are closed note, but in the long run, that's so much better and you'll be so much more prepared.
And many are pass fail only. They don't even get.
Yeah.
You don't get
Right.
grades in
Yeah.
honors, high honor.
It's they rate them by letters of the alphabet. And I remember looking through like the resumes and things for clerks that were trying to apply to the positions that I was in while I was there. And I saw like HP. I was like, is that an A? Is that, does everyone get those? I don't know. So it's crazy.
So for me and my co-clerk with Judge Edison is a Duke Law grad. I neglected to mention that I'll be clerking on the Fifth Circuit next year. And I've seen the clerks that I'm going to be clerking with on the Fifth Circuit, Harvard, Yale, I think Tulane, and then South Texas. So we're up there with all of them.
Nothing
And
you do if you do well. I mean that, and because you'll get the temptation like, wow, I'm in the top 5%. I can save like $4,000 a year saving tuition each year, whatever. I mean, you're gonna forget about that in 2 minutes. You won't remember that. Like, in-state tuition's nice, but that will not. That's like a fraction of the clerk bonus, right? It's just not even the difference.
We are, sorry.
I would also say some of the people who go to law school out of state are at a disadvantage. I neglected to mention that I practiced for a year as well at Jackson Walker before starting this clerkship. When people come from out of state to come practice in Texas, they aren't familiar with Texas state law like we are. We have Texas pretrial procedure, Texas trial and appellate procedure classes that I highly recommend you guys take later on in your time at South Texas. But those things prepare you to practice in Texas state court that you're not going to be able to get in law schools that are out of state as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we are unapologetically passionate about this place.
I'm sorry, make no apology.
And I don't know of any school where anybody is hand placing people in the caliber of clerkships that Josh is. Frankly, it's just unheard of. I do want to get to.
Yale, that's what.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's absolutely true.
This side the Charles River. Yeah.
So I do want to get to the application process and your experiences of that, because one thing I didn't realize until I recently was an intern myself, is that a lot of times you're sitting in on the selection of the new interns, clerks, and so forth. So starting with you, Tate, both from your experience and from what you've seen since you arrived, any advice for these folks on applying and how they can stand out, any do's and don'ts?
Okay, I'll start with advice. So whenever you apply to a judge, you're going to have to include your resume, a cover letter, probably a writing sample, and then letters of recommendation. You need to scrub your resume, cover letter, and writing sample. Make sure they are perfect. No errors, no typos, because that's going to be the easiest way for a judge to just easily put you in we're not going to hire you, pal, because you can't even take the amount of time to make sure your application is correct. So my advice would be to, spend, a few days, even weeks, going back and looking at things, making sure that things are perfect and how you want to present yourself to the judge before you submit an application. You don't want to just do it off of the whim. For me, I did that during my beginning of my 3L year, and Judge Edison's application process was via email. So you would just put your packet together, send it to him via email. Another avenue that you could pursue is to make a physical packet. So like print out your resume, cover letter, and all of your materials and go submit them at the courthouse. That's another way you can apply. But for me, it was through email. So I emailed, and then Judge Edison ended up getting back to me. It was the same process for the Fifth Circuit for Judge Douglas. One thing that you'll see whenever you're starting to clerk is there's this website called Oscar, which is the method that some judges use to hire their clerks, but not all judges use it. You'll have to go do research on some judges on how to even apply to their chambers. So for Judge Douglas, I had to go scrub her website. There wasn't a lot of information. I ended up calling her chambers and asking if she's accepting law clerks for the 2026 term, and they gave me an email address over the phone to send it to. So then I put my packet together, emailed it to her, and then they reached out via email to schedule interviews that way. So the process is you have to do some research because not all judges are the same. But my advice would be to make sure that your application is perfect, just so you aren't thrown out on a technicality or just for lack of attention to detail, something like that.
I echo everything that Tate said. It is so important that everything that you submit to the judge or justice that you are clerking for is perfect. Have someone else look at it. Have someone else read it. You might think it's perfect, but you've read it 20 times and it might look perfect to you. Probably not. So have someone else read it. As far as, applying and what you're putting in those application materials, I think it's very important that you put something in there as to why you want to work with that particular judge. Oftentimes it was the case in both of my clerkships that the clerks kind of do the first run through all the applications that are submitted. And most of the people we ended up hiring were people that had something specific as to why they wanted that particular position. That is so important. Grades are, of course, important as well, but we want to know why you want to work with that person, because when you kind of embark on a clerkship, it's really a partnership between you and the judge that you're working for. So you need to make sure that that's someone that you respect, someone that you want to be clerking for, and really let them know that you've done your research on who they are as a person, so that, they know that you're really interested in them and not just in the broader idea of, well, I want a clerkship because it looks good. Let them know why you want to clerk with them.
Yes, 1000% in agreement with that. I had the fortunate opportunity. I was in charge. I was a law clerk, hiring clerk for Judge Elrod. So this past year, that was one of my many, many jobs in chambers, was to, kind of manage the hiring process. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a quick no back from judge because there was a misspelling in the cover letter. There was chief judge was not capitalized in the salutation. Just the very minimal things. But as a law clerk, you get paid to find the minutiae. You get paid to work everything with a fine-tooth comb and come to the proper, correct answer. So if you can't do that on a cover letter or on a writing sample, it's you're already Xing yourself out. And Judge Elrod will tell you sometimes when she has two similarly situated applicants, they come from great law schools, they have great grades, they've done the journals, they've done advocacy, all of those things. She will say, law clerks, tell me who has the least amount of blue book errors in their writing sample. And that's the clerk that she hires. So blue booking matters, green booking matters, all of that matters because that is what you're going to be doing in chambers. I will say, I echo Haley in that you want to put something, when we read the cover letters and when Judge reads the cover letters, she wants to know why you want to clerk for her specifically. Is it her jurisprudential philosophy? Is it some of the opinions that she's written? What specifically about Judge Elrod makes it so that you want to spend an entire year with her, upwards of 40, 50, 60 hours a week in chambers? So that is incredibly important in making your application stand out. Another judge, you can see I pulled many, many things from Judge Elrod. She still, as a judge, uses a ruler, so just a regular wooden ruler, to read her opinions, to read the memos as a way to catch errors. So she will read from the bottom up. So you're not reading, in a synchronous order. You are reading the last line in your opinion all the way up through the top. It's the easiest way to catch catch errors, let other people read it, be able to explain to other people why you want to clerk for this judge verbally, not just thinking it in your head. So there are many, many things that you can do to kind of try to set yourself apart, but ultimately it's getting the grades, having a perfect application. And then when you do get that interview, and we may talk about interviewing here in a second, when you do get that interview, being prepared having read the judge's opinions, being able to know their jurisprudential philosophy. Why do they hold, what's their position on standing? What is their position on waiver versus forfeiture? All the very, very small things that you may think are irrelevant are big things when it comes to clerking.
Let me add a point that both Haley and Eric alluded to this a moment ago. How do you pick which judge you want to work for? Right? So in the olden days, people might have applied to 10, 20, 100. I applied to all the judges, actually all of them, like 800. That was me. Don't do that. It wasn't very, it worked, but it wasn't very easy. Judges want to see why you applying to me in particular. And one of the things I try to do is try and narrow down the list of clerkship applications, like maybe 1, maybe 2 judges, because I can tell the judge, this is your number one pick. He wants a clerk for you and only you. That's a powerful message. So number one factor, geography. You need to look beyond Houston. For the love of God. There are a good number of judges in Houston. It's also a very competitive market. There are a couple of Fifth Circuit judges here. There are about 24 district court judges, including the magistrates, right? Everyone in the country wants to be in a big city. There are other places in Texas. Go down to the Valley. Go to West Texas. Go to North Texas, right? Go to Louisiana, right across the border. These are less desirable locations and still the same federal docket, the same sorts of cases. Second, Eric alluded to jurisprudence. Some judges have ideological fits. They want a conservative clerk, they want a liberal clerk. Some judges don't. Eric and Judge Elrod don't always have the same politics. That doesn't matter for Judge Elrod. Other judges will want, Judge Jones, Judge Smith, maybe want people to match up to them more closely. Also, keep in mind, experience. Some judges only hire you right out of law school. They'll be your very first job. Other judges will have someone who maybe clerked for a lower court judge. Maybe, for example, Haley had Scotex, then district court, or flipped. Maybe you have district court, then Scotex. Tate worked at a firm for a year, then he did the magistrate, and I was in the Fifth Circuit. What all this means is when we work with you, it's sort of a concierge service. Sounds kind of weird, but it's true. We try to figure out where are you from, where do you want to go, what's your experience path, and we sort of narrow down the list. And we also, this is something I feel very strongly about, we don't have students competing against each other. I don't want 2 people going to the same judge with applications. It's never good. It's like, which child do you love more? It's an awkward conversation I don't like having. It happens sometimes. I can't stop it. But we try to focus, and it works well. Generally, when a student goes for an interview, it's rare they don't get the job. By the time they get to that point, and our kids do well. So Judge Elrod hired Eric, Kenesha, Tevin, my other student this semester. And these are all people at the tip top of the class on law review, moot court champions. The profile's there. And if you sort of do those great things, there's a lot of room ahead of you.
I do want to touch quickly on the interview process. Eric, you alluded to that. Do you want to go first on that? Just how to prepare, what it's like?
Yeah, absolutely. So interviewing for a judge is tough because it's generally the law clerks and the judge. So you are interviewing sometimes in a group setting, sometimes you're interviewing with the law clerks first and then the judge, or vice versa. So it's a lot of personalities to kind of have to prepare for, but ultimately the most important person that you want to prepare for is the judge. So like I said earlier, knowing their jurisprudence, knowing the types of opinion or the opinions they've written, that they're standing on their thoughts and philosophy on various things. So doing your research, doing your workup on that particular judge. And then in the interviews with the clerks, how Judge Elrod does it is kind of like a 2-parter. It's maybe a first interviews with the set of clerks is like the personality interview. So it's like, are you somebody who's compatible with, that can be compatible with other personalities in chambers? Like what's your demeanor? Are you personable? Are you a nice person? Are you a good human being? And then second, would be like the substantive. So we're talking about textualism versus originalism. You're talking about jurisprudence. You're talking about various Supreme Court cases. You're getting the random questions like, I know there's one clerk, one of my co-clerks who was always wanted to be in the substantive interview because he wanted to ask the amendments, you've got even and odd. If you had to get rid of half of the amendments, which ones are you keeping and why? So is it the odds, First Amendment, Fifth Amendment, 13th Amendment? Like there's a lot of important amendments, or is it the evens, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment? So those types of questions to really gauge your understanding of the federal courts, the Constitution, and ultimately the judge's jurisprudence.
Amendments, 1, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13.
There you go.
17. Yeah,
At the-
19, 23. Yeah, prime amendments, that's my answer.
Okay, so like Eric mentioned, you have your very substantive interviews and you also have your very, personable interviews. How are you going to fit into this chambers? If you're going to fit into the chambers, more of just like a conversation. I have had the opportunity to do both and to give both. I personally like the more, personal interview. I don't like to question you on what's your favorite, U.S. Supreme Court case. I think that's important, but I'd rather know that you're a good fit for this chambers and for the judge that you're clerking for. So it just really depends on the judge. Do your homework to see if you know anyone that has interviewed with that judge in the past. That will give you a much better insight to what their interview process is going to look like. And I'll also just note that it's scary and everyone knows that you're going to be scared when you go into that interview. That's a known fact. But I think there are certain situations that you can prepare for and there are certain situations that you can't. If you get a question that you don't know the answer to, and this happened for an intern that was, seeking an internship at the Texas Supreme Court, she got a question she didn't know the answer to. It was something like, name your favorite Texas Supreme Court case, and why do you like that one? Something of that nature. And she just blanked. She had no answer. She couldn't think of a single case. And she actually emailed us the following day and said, I'm so sorry. I completely blanked. I was so nervous. I couldn't give you an answer. Here's my answer and why. And then she got the job. So, yeah. So if that happens to you and for whatever reason, you can't think of an answer, it's okay that you've made a mistake and you can't remember something. That happens to all of us. It's how you recover from that may ultimately get you the job. So
Thank you so much. We are about out of time. Tate, do you have just like a quick
point on that? Second everything that Eric and Haley said. I even reached out to Eric before my Fifth Circuit interview, and he was gracious enough to speak with me on the phone on how to prepare, how to put myself in the best light for the interview. And I also went as far as to search for Judge Douglas's former clerks, called them on the phone and asked for any tips on interviews and what it would be like. Thankfully, she let me know it's not going to be a super substantive, like law heavy interview. She just wants to get to know you, see if you'll be a good fit in chambers. So try to do all the work you can on the front end to prepare for these interviews, and you should be good.
We have some closing comments from CRC, but first let's thank our wonderful panelists. You get out what you put in, and they truly put their hearts into everything. So we thank you very much.
And thank you to our moderators, Professor Buchanan and Professor Blackman, for also providing. As they alluded to, it's all in the details, and the CRC is here to help you with your marketing materials. So feel free to always come see us about strategy on how to find the judges that you may want to apply to, and on refining your marketing materials. Additionally, on Monday at noon, we open up Spring 2026 Judicial Resume Collection. So if you're interested in a judicial externship for Spring 2026, that will be opening up. We have about 18 judges that are participating. So be on the lookout for that email from me. Thank y'all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys. Yes.
good.
Good to be back.
We're so lucky to have you guys. Thank you.
Hi.
My name's Yay!